Welcome to the Orphans of Avraham. It's Thursday night. It's 8 o'clock Eastern, and it's time for the longest-running weekly Noahide Torah chat on Google+. I don't know if I was supposed to open this show up, but I did anyway. Hi, John. How you doing this evening?
Hey, I like it when a man takes reins. That's all right.
So
You're
we
a
start.
mensch.
We start.
You're a mensch. You're a mensch. I can't complain.
Well, we can talk about your delusions later. No, thank you. Vayikra, we start this week. Leviticus, and of course, we always talk Parsha. Parsha is always a central theme of every hangout. And then I want to talk about the rise of anti-Semitism in the United States. I think Europe, it's blatantly obvious. Here, it's becoming far more obvious, and so I want to get on that. That's one of the things I want to talk about. I want to get heavy and groovy on that.
This is one of those books where people, kind of, sit back and kind of go. They kind of like sleep it, because it can be kind of dry, and then the Lord spoke to Moses, and then take the sheep and sprinkle the blood on the, and you kind of just want to, pass out for an hour or two reading it. But actually, quite frank, if you want to be quite honest and frank about it, if you actually read deeper into the meaning of Vayikra, of Levitical law, it's actually quite intriguing. It's interesting. It's actually profound. It's a very interesting book. It's not as boring as people might seem. I guess you can say Exodus was sort of a journey of how you can say kind of the larger story, if you want to about Adam and Eve. So we kind of get the story of Adam and Eve. There's 2 chapters about their life story, about how they were exiled from paradise. And sort of Exodus is sort of a reversal of that, sort of going from captivity to paradise. And Adam and Eve was from paradise to captivity. And now Leviticus is sort of like the rectification of eating from the tree. And so all the commandments that are given to the priests or how we can sort of repair or sort of reconnect to the 9 sins of each of the people that were God gives. So God gives 9 punishments to Adam. God gave 9 punishments to Eve, and God also gave 9 punishments to serpent. And so Leviticus actually teaches us how we can actually repair and reconnect those punishments, and how we can actually turn those punishments into actual mitzvot. And so everything we learn from menstruation, which you may think is just this, women have to menstruate and have to be kept out of the camp, and they have to go in the mikvah, and they got to do this and that. Well, that's a rectification of Eve's sin of bearing childbirth and having menstrual pains, and then also we have the priests, the Cohen law is about how to slaughter a ritual animal, is also how to kill the serpent. So it's all these laws that you might think are very arbitrary, very boring, very mundane, very like, oh, why is God giving us this? Why is God telling us these boring stories? But it's actually really deeply profound, and actually has a really good and deep, meaningful thing that we can have. Like you, James, you always say to me, what's the practical application? How can I, if I have a baby screaming in the other room, how can I implement Torah today? How can I use it today? Well, Leviticus actually does that. If you actually look for it, Leviticus can give you those answers. So hopefully during these next couple of weeks, these next 12 weeks, hopefully we can dive deeper and find these true meanings of Leviticus.
Would you think that Leviticus, I likened it in a blog I never actually published, but I likened it to stereo instructions. Because, when you look at stereo, one, it's difficult to read stereo instructions for a lot of people. I don't even know if they make stereos anymore, but in the old days, that reads like stereo instructions was a cliche because setting up a stereo used to be kind of an effort. Setting up a VCR to record something was an effort at one time. When you read Leviticus, it is rather technical. It will read like technical, jargon. You put this wire in this hole, you put this wire in, this jack goes in this part of the speaker. You sit your antenna up here, and all these different things it's telling you to do. But that's not exactly the defining thing of a stereo are the instructions. When you look deeper, when you begin to look at why the stones are arranged the way they are on the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol, why we have so many hooks and so many rings to set up the curtain or the outside of the Mishkan, which we learned about earlier in Exodus, but why the priestly vestments, each one of these little details and the length of something and the amount of something and what something's made out of and where it's placed in the Mishkan and how the priest goes about taking care of these things. It's actually quite deeper. The inner workings of a stereo at the time, even now, are far more complex than plugging this into that. But at least what Exodus does on the surface is it's gonna be like that. It's gonna be very ordered, very square with corners. But when you stop and just explore one utensil or one function of a priest or the Kohen Gadol, then things begin to pop. Because this book is not only about priests and the priestly ways, Levites. It's also not only about the priests and the Kohen Gadol. It's about the priestly purpose of Israel. So those of us who attach must take this into consideration and live our lives accordingly, at least so we don't get in the way. But that was my thing. It's like stereo instructions. It's very dry. I remember every year when we used to read the whole Parsha. Remember years ago we used to read the whole Parsha every Wednesday, front to beginning, no matter how long it was, and people were nodding off, like you were saying. They were bored. Because they don't realize now Frank is not one who would get bored. He could see these details and these amounts and weights and measures and all that and could just see things would just blossom in the man's head. And everybody gets that. But I don't know. Would you say it's kind of like stereo instructions in a way?
It is. There's no way. There's no other way to say it. I'm going to be frank about it. I'm a New Yorker. I tell things the way it is. Leviticus on the surface is quite boring. It's like stereo instructions, but I have something about me. There's something in me that wants to know the deeper meaning of something. So stereo instructions are really like I love instructions. I love knowing how something works. I want to know how the stereo that I bought operates. I want to know how the sound is made and how that can produce sound and how it captures the waves of the radio, and that's how the wires are set up. It's if you really believe that this is the word of God, and you think this is what God is telling this that has it right. He gave it to us for a reason. He wants to know. He wants to connect with us. He wants to tell us a story. If that's the case, don't you want to know how you connect to God? Don't you want to know how your creator made you and how you can connect to it? He's there. He's speaking to you, and you just need to tap into that frequency. And I think that's what these not to go into the bashing of other religions, but a lot of these other religions are a competition out there. The Christians and the Islams and the Muslims. They kind of want to simplify it. It's too complicated. I want to connect to God that quick and easy way. I just want to just tap in. I get it. I get it. I honestly get it. I want that quick and easy. I'm an American. I'm from New York. We want it quick. Give it to me now. What do you it's like the saying, what do you do for me lately? If you're not doing anything for me now, then what are you doing for me? In Judaism, it's all about the interconnections, the precise dimensions of the Mishkan, like you were talking about, integral details, and this is quite frankly, by understanding these seemingly what would be the word, seemingly the minutia, these minor these little details. You might think, well, why does it matter? That the arm of the tabernacle is 3 inches, and why does it matter if it's this tall, and why does it have to have 5 rings instead of? You would think, oh, it's arbitrary. You know what? I just need a dead Jew on a stick. You know what? That's so much easier. You know what? I can understand that. He died for my sins. I get it. But you know what? You're missing the forest through the trees. There's something there.
Yep.
There's something there. There's just when you really learn about how you're a microcosm. I'll put it this way, James. Like the Talmud teaches us that a human being is a minuscule version of the universe. You, James, and everyone listening out here on Orphans of Abraham, you are a universe. You yourself are a universe. You have in you a mishkan, a temple, a tabernacle. You have the testimonial tablets. You have the staff of Moses. You are a Moses. You are an Aaron within you. And this is what we're going to learn about in these coming weeks, about how you're building yourself a temple, how you're building yourself a mishkan, how you're doing this by knowing the dimensions of all these integral details. You learn about yourself, and by learning about yourself, you will grow as a person. I guarantee you that, James, and I guarantee you that everyone listening, you will grow by learning these integral details. This minutia, you will grow.
Agreed. And you don't get it at first, do you? It's not made obvious. But you pick up on it. It becomes a function of just daily life. And I've heard, Doreen Dotan, a friend of mine, she says it's a mapping of human consciousness is what it's really about. Like, you can take the history and you can take the commandments and laws as do and do not, but in the end, the Torah is actually there to what's the word I'm looking for? Soul correction. I forgot the Hebrew word for soul correction, but it was about it's about correcting itself first. It's
You're saying it's sort of like a tikkun molam. It's like sort of a repairing.
Yeah, only if you said if every man's a microcosm of the universe or a universe in miniature, then yeah, definitely tikkun olam, definitely repairing the world. But you're repairing yourself too. I mean, it speaks to you personally. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yes.
I mean,
Levitical law. And that's you're exactly right, and that's what Levitical law does. It correct. Like I opened the show with, there were nine punishments for the man, the woman, and the Satan in the Garden of Eden. 9 punishments, and so what Leviticus teaches us is how to rectify these 9 punishments. And the Hasidic spin on this is not like normative Judaism, but like those who believe in the black hats of Judaism, they sort of teach that there is no really such thing as punishments. There is only blessings. God is only good, and God can only give us good things. So what God told us and what happened to the man and the woman and the Satan were actually blessings. So in a way, Leviticus is a way that you can sort of tap into these blessings, or you can sort of I don't know how to say it, and it sort of channel channel the blessings, sort of like supercharge yourself. So if these things that God told Adam and Eve and the serpent that they would happen to them because of what they did, then what the priests do, right? And I give the example of the laws of menstruation. Like you think, okay, it's sort of arbitrary laws of why a woman bleeds, but really, it's a profound way of knowing why. I don't know. I'm sorry. It's kind of late for me, and
it's all right.
if you really want to know how you work, if you really want to know how to really channel these sort of the way things work in the universe, then you can sort of understand this through Leviticus. I mean, that's just the only way I can put it. I mean, that's
Well,
just the way. Go ahead, James.
what does the priesthood do? It guards the union of heaven and earth, really. I mean, some would say the Torah is the unification of heaven and earth. It is the divine made finite. It's I mean, the Kohen Gadol actually has to. I mean, he has protections when approaching, but that's the presence of God in the Holy of Holies. That's where prophecy happened, or happens. So if we are to take that, and I will say the word figuratively, if we figuratively put that on man's soul or human consciousness, there is a Mishkan, there is a Holy of Holies, and there is a connection. And this is all people. And your religion will allow only so much of this to go through normally. But there is a connection between you and the divine, where they meet, where God speaks to you, particularly in dreams. Even a small fraction of your dream is prophecy. That's, God speaks to us in our dreams. I've heard that many times throughout my studies. So what is the priesthood in your mind? Does it guard the mundane from the Holy of Holies? Do you go and make an offering to God? Do you talk to God? Do you I don't want to say access that part of your consciousness, but really that's what it's about when you think about it. So not only when you look out in the world, and yes, you have priests who take care of the orphan and the widow. You have the Kohen and the Kohen Gadol. You have the like I said, the Levites who go out in the world, and they all have there's a facility in human consciousness. I don't want to say that mimics this, but this is a figurative aspect of what goes on in your own mind. You do have a Mishkan, or someone might say you are one, but you have a connection to God. You don't just bring offerings because God says go kill an animal. There's a reason why you want to give a priest a meal. There's a reason why you want to keep that link between the mundane and the divine there, because that's kind of the purpose of Judaism in a way. Kind of the purpose of this whole thing is to elevate the world so that God might dwell among us again, like making Eden. And of course, John was talking about that too, So it's much more than just what do the old dusty priests do. These weren't old dusty priests, one, and it's bigger than just utensils, and it's different than garments, and it's much more to that. And in this, we get it, when the individual reads it, it's going to affect them, but we also get a lesson in how the priests work, how the priesthood works within Israel, and how Israel itself works as a nation of priests. So,
exactly. I mean, that's just another way of connecting to the story of Genesis. God made Adam and Eve garments of skin, vestments, and sort of the allegory of this is, we make the priests vestments and garments of skin, special dress. So that that it's a connection that we make. It's an expansion of understanding of how Eve, the Garden of Eden was a perfect place. It was heaven. It was paradise, and so obviously, in a way that we are all priests. We're all Adam. The story of Adam and Eve is a story about all of us, man and woman, and how we come into this earth, and how we are exiled from paradise. There's a saying in the Talmud that says that the reason why a baby cries is because he had to leave heaven. His soul left heaven to come to earth, and the reason why a person, when they die, that we cry is because now his soul has to go back to heaven, and we lost him here. So it's sort of like a circle of life, sort of, you know, the Lion King um, sort of story here. And so this is what it is. It's a rectification. You know, if you you know believe in these things, you know, I'm a believer. You know, I truly believe that um, God gave me a reason to live, and this is what I believe, and you know this is how I connect. I think Leviticus is a very, I think it's one of the most profound books of them all. I like each year I think I get a more, I think I connect to Leviticus, and I think I kind of um, have a deeper respect for the book every year I read it, because it's actually has the most information. Is that the way I should put it, James?
That's
It
true.
like has, like Genesis. It's nice. It has has these stories. You know, Genesis is sort of like a storybook, right? Exodus, you know, it's sort of like an adventure. But Leviticus,
Drama.
it's
Yeah.
like it's kind of like math. You know, it's like
Detail.
learning. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
learning algebra. You know, it's like this is the real, this is the juicy stuff. This is what you need to know. You think you need to know, you know, the other stuff? No, you need to know algebra. You need to know the science. You need to know the you know the higher education. This is university stuff here, guys. I mean, this is why we come here. This is why we believe, no?
No. You know. Yeah. Absolutely. Or starting a little early. I know Asher took over for a while.
I also want to say that it's the anniversary of our of Moses Rabbeinu, Moses our teacher. He passed away the 7th of Adar, and he was also born the 7th of Adar. So you know the Talmud states that a person who dies the same day he's born means that he fulfilled his life's purpose. He completed his mission of the world that God, you know, God, there's a saying in Judaism, God made a space that fits you perfectly, and that's why God created you, because you only you can fit the space that He created. So Moses, our teacher, anniversary. I also want to talk about how, you know, Moses. I did a video about a couple of weeks ago how Moses was the perfect redeemer, and that the Mashiach will be like a Moses. He will be like like a Moses. You know, there's a, you know, the Christianity teaches that there shall be a prophet like Moses, and you know they say it's JC, but one who reads actually, quite frankly, if you read Leviticus, you will realize that um, there's no real nice way of putting it, but he wasn't the redeemer like Moses. He wasn't a prophet like Moses, and so um, I just want to give a shout out to the anniversary, Moses. Happy birthday, Moses. That's all I want to say. Go ahead, James. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Happy birthday, Moses. No, you can cut me off. Not at all. Hopefully, we'll get some folks in here. I know Rabbi Asher Mazer was taking over for a couple of weeks, and he did it at a much later time. So hopefully, we'll get some folks in here. I figured I've got something here that might be interesting. I thought to read about Leviticus. It's from the Hertz edition Chumash, which I have recently discovered was very popular among the conservative movement. It's about the antiquity and Mosaic authorship of Vayikra, of Leviticus. I thought I might read this while we see if we can get some folks in here.
Hi.
Well, there she is. Hi, hey, Rosalie.
Hello.
I'm about to read the antiquity and Mosaic authorship of the book of Leviticus out of the Hertz edition. It's a couple of paragraphs. but it's interesting, and I think it's neat, especially when when people look at the historicity of these books and did they really exist, and people think they were written much later, yada yada. But I thought I'd read this here real quick. The Antiquity and Mosaic Authorship, the Book of Leviticus. Both the antiquity and the Mosaic authorship of the Book of Leviticus are denied by biblical critics. They declare Leviticus to be part of that section of the Pentateuch which they call the priestly code, and usually designate by the letters P. It's this priestly code, or P, is supposed to include, besides Leviticus, some portions of Genesis and Exodus, especially the chapters on the tabernacle and 28 chapters of Numbers. They maintain that while some portions of Leviticus may enter or maybe earlier than others, they are all edited or written by Ezra and his school and made an integral part of the law of Moses in the year 4444 before the BC, before the Common Era, or very shortly thereafter. It must be clearly understood that this idea of a priestly code and its late origins is nothing more than pure hypothesis, and there is not a shred of evidence to show that it ever construed a separate work. In fact, the whole Deuteronomy theory, as proposed by Julius Wellhausen, and his followers, that the Pentateuch consists of separate documents of different dates and authorships, it rests on unproven assumptions. It is easy to make a theory look plausible if the facts are selected or trimmed judiciously, and biblical critics are most judicious with both the selecting of the facts and trimming them to suit their purpose. However, when the facts are against their theory, the facts are altered or pronounced to be a letter gloss in the passage in which they occur, or the critics declare the whole passage to be sheer forgery. Irreconcilable differences between documents are created. Let me try that again. Irreconcilable differences between documents are created, these so-called documents, leading to a complete reversal of Israel's story. And the principal support for such a topsy-turvy presentation of the Bible or biblical history and religion is the alleged existence of these irreconcilable differences between the documents. It is all reasoning in a vicious circle. Lastly, outstanding scholars like Professor Sayce have from the first pronounced the Deuteronomy theory of the Pentateuch to be baseless fabric of subjective imagination. Others have come to share this view, realizing more and more the insuperable objections to the theory of the late origin of Levitical legislation. The whole critical theory is today being questioned on fundamental issues. Nevertheless, the popularizers of theological literature ignore altogether the existence of any other opinion than that of the critics. They continue to write as if the lateness of Leviticus were indeed one of the finalities of scholarship. And nothing could be further from the truth. Will be plain to the student who will take the trouble to consult wiser heads. They give a list of books here: the Early Religion of Israel by William Blackwood, The Problem of the Old Testament by James Nisbet. That's an author I recognize right there. Sanctuary and Sacrifice by Eyre and Spottiswoode. We've got Essays in Pentateuchal Criticism by Elliot Stock. And also, here we go. I'm going to go back to my German high school. The Wittgenstein Instasen gan die Graf Behalsich Hypotheses. In other words, Popular Berlin was written a generation ago from the publication of this book, which was about 80 years ago. But there are sources out there. this kind of stuff, I think, and we're going to get into this. I want to talk about. Welcome, Carla. Shalom. When we talk about the growing rise of anti-Semitism, it's biblical critics, I think, who are a main contributing factor to it. Most definitely. Oh, the ladies are gone. One's gone. Okay, we got Rosalie. How you doing, Rosalie? What's new?
Not much. Not much. I'm just sitting here being on the heating pad. Got no hook from chemo and went to work today. That was probably not a smart idea, but I did it anyway.
Oh wow!
And I'm kind of feeling it. Not bouncing back as fast as I thought I would, but hey, but I worked hard and we got her did.
Good. Glad it got done. Did.
Yep.
Any thoughts on Leviticus? John and I were talking about how Leviticus can read like stereo instructions.
This is true.
But, you know, as you always say, there are far deeper schools of thought and ways of thinking involved in such a dry text. Anything that stands out? Anything you might have picked up in one of your classes?
Not that I can remember right offhand.
Move along. Okay.
Moving right along. Okay.
Well, all right. Hopefully we'll get Carla back in here in a second.
Yeah.
No daylight savings time in Europe. No daylight savings time in Portugal. So John is with us a little longer.
Yay.
Normal.
Yay.
Yeah, right. It's 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock, 12:30. So it's not 1:30, it's 12:30. So I don't know if I was supposed to set my clock back forward or not, but
spring ahead and fall back.
Spring ahead, so I didn't have to spring ahead, so I don't know. Maybe I'm
cool.
Maybe I don't have to travel like everyone else did.
Well, it's 8:30 here, so
we had a bill in the Oklahoma legislature to end daylight savings, and which of course most of the people in Oklahoma, I think most of the people in America want to do away with it, but they were afraid of how it would affect business dealings with surrounding states, and I suppose that's a legitimate argument. So apparently they're starting up a coalition of all our, like the fat chunk of the Midwestern states are going to go for the next legislative session, are going to have a big, joint bill basically that they're going to replicate in all the states to make sure to try and get daylight savings time overturned. Which would be nice, I think. Sadly, I'm not sure if, John would be able to stay the extra hour, but we have a 10% rise in heart attacks. We have a 10% rise in stroke. Every fallback and every jump forward, every spring forward. That's not healthy.
Why is the connection?
Well, people having a
setting the clocks forward and backwards kills people.
Apparently, it's the
it's a spring forward that does it. You lose an hour.
It's when your whole system has to be, you're shifted suddenly an hour earlier. Apparently it affects people. Yeah.
All right.
Stress. But I think it does. I mean, the spring, we get the stress of everything moved back an hour earlier, losing an hour of sleep. And then I think also, I personally don't like the whole shift in November when we have to fall back, and then suddenly it's suddenly night at 5:30 in the evening. It's suddenly pitch black out there at 6. I think that does a lot of damage. When people will suddenly lose that little bit of sunlight left, just so we can gain a little bit when the sunshine's already. It's silly stuff.
Yeah, I don't know.
We need to get rid of it.
What's the Torah answer? I would say whatever the Torah teaches us about how to observe the signs and wonders. God says that God made the sun and the moons and the stars as signs and wonders, as calculations and calendars, and that's kind of like what we should go by. I think that the answer to solve it is Torah. I mean, whatever the correct way to do it would be
The sun,
whatever. I mean, I'm
the
just a
sun, the
blab.
star, they're all always on time. I think is what God's saying.
Right.
It's needless. It's supposed to help the farmers. I'm not buying it.
Yeah.
The rooster's crow will always be on time. It will always wake you up. So if it's for farmers, that makes no sense at all either. Because they'll wake you up at sunrise anyway. You don't need a clock. What do I know? I'm not a farmer. Not a farmer by any means. Let's see if anybody's chatting on the outside.
That's a slow night. Where is everyone? Everyone's out dancing? Everyone's celebrating the spring ahead, changing the clocks?
I guess so.
I did a hangout the other night. Unfortunately, I only had St. Tommy come by and our friend that goes by Donald Trump. I did a hangout called I forget what I named it. Democratic Party and Anti-Semitic. Democratic Party is now the Party of Anti-Semites or something. I discussed a few people about how the Democratic Party is very, seemingly it's like a new thing that they're anti-Semites. But quite frankly, and honest with everyone, the Democratic Party has always been a party of scumbags, and I apologize to anyone who's listening. The Democratic Party, for those who don't know, were founded by the Ku Klux Klan. I know that's going to be a shock for a lot of people, but
the Klan was founded by Democrats. Yeah,
right. The Democratic Party and the Ku Klux Klan are one and the same. Democratic Party and the Klan Party are no different, and so anti-Semitism has always been the root of the Democrats. It's just a fact. They're hateful people. The Democratic people. To be a Democrat, you have to be a real bigot. I mean, when you really think about it, because what's the premise of the Democratic Party is that they think they know your life better than you. They want to regulate your life. They want to take the individuality out of you as a person, as an individual. And so that's the premise of a Republican. A Republican believes in individuality. That you as an individual can rule your life the way you ought to rule it, that you know best. And so that's real bigotry. Democracy is real bigotry because it takes you, the essence of who you are, the individualness of you away. It destroys it. It brings it wants you want to be part of the collective. That's what it wants. It wants a hive mind, hive mentality. That you're just another brick in the wall. You're just another soldier in the army. You're just another uniform. You're just another number. You're just another entity. You have no uniqueness about you. That's the essence of the Democratic Party, and this is why we have people like AOC, Cortez, and we have bigots like these people like Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi.
AOC's a wingnut.
These people are scumbags. Yeah, she's a wingnut, but they're no different than they were. They're nothing new. That's what I'm trying to say. People are getting all crazy, bent out of shape, like, oh, what happened to the Democrats? They always been this way. Hello, McFly. Think McFly. Hello.
Yes.
They're all about collectivism. They're all they are not, like you say, they're not the individual. They're all about groups, labels. They want to put you in boxes with other people. It's all about getting you down into a box and then providing differences between the boxes and the people in the boxes, and then getting them to compare with each other. And then they have to fix laws to regulate the comparison. It's nuts. It's all about collectivism. That every part of their philosophy, and I understand the welfare state. I'm not knocking Winston Churchill. All right, I can honestly get along with an old FDR style Democrat to some extent. But in the end, and this is why the civil rights movement, they claimed it to be a Democrat, even though it was Republican. Ike was a Republican, and a mostly Republican Congress that started the act to begin with, because they want to keep people in groups. So they're all about grouping people. They want to group you by your orgasm with this LGBT bit. They want to group you by your religion, then they want to subgroup you by your race, and then subgroup one or the other, and they got to subgroup your race with your political faction, and it's all about segregating and subdividing society into little boxes and little compartments, like bricks in the wall, like you were saying. You know,
it's almost sect, S-E-C-T, sect-ish.
Yeah, everyone's got to be in their own little. Yeah, that's why that's why liberals say, white people, don't go watch Black Panther when it opens. I'd planned that for weeks. They're telling white people, don't go to Black Panther. That's their movie. Or like they tried with Wonder Woman in the recent Marvel Studios Captain Marvel. We don't want men to go to the opening. We want only women. We want an only women showing. You know, they don't want the men there. That's not yours. That's not for you.
But yet at the same time, they want to push this. Welcome back. And then at the same time, they want to push that men can be women too, right? So, I mean, men shouldn't go, but what if I identify as a woman? Why can't I do that?
Please don't.
You know what I mean? What happened?
I said, please don't.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to have to grow a beard.
I probably. Hey, Rosalie, your bigotry has no place on the offense of Abraham. No, I'm just joking.
I got bigotry. I'll be right honest with you, and it's kind of servicing again. Back in about 2006, 2007, when I got involved in early social media and whatnot, I couldn't stand atheist Jews. I couldn't stand the idea of one, because here I am coming into this thing full force, headstrong like a bull in a china shop. Don't get me wrong. I had no clue what I was doing, but I was clued in. Oh, man, nothing got me. And still to this day, atheist Jews piss me off. Bernie Sanders types, these Chuck Schumer types. Genos. Yeah. Jew in name only.
And not even now.
Yeah, that's just, God, I just want to drop kick him in the gonads. These people. Nothing's worse than an atheistic Jew. That's just like, and I got harped on for saying that. I got harped on. I had a couple of rabbis call me that, we don't want to say that in public. We don't want to make bad, we don't want to, 14 years later, fuck atheist Jews. They cause problems in the world. Your anti-Jewish Jew, your non-Torah Jew, always causes friggin' problems. You ever notice that? And they're good at it. They're well good at it. Look at the banking institution. I give all compliment to banks. They have done the capitalist's dream. They got their profit. They got a corner on the market. They did everything capitalism wanted to do. Good, your country's ruled by them. Good, your economy's ruined by them. You freaking deserve it. God told you what money is, and you're going to believe these schmucks who side with a bunch of other radical, freakish goyim, like the Rockefellers. And then then you get your politician Jew. Oh, don't you love this shit? Don't you love the image that's put in the minds of millions of people, coast to coast, let alone the whole world? These are what Jews are. Schumers and Feinstein had a freaking spy, Chinese spy, drive Miss Daisy around for 20 freaking years and didn't even notice. Yeah, whatever. Your Schumers, your Pelosi, not Pelosi, she's an Italian. But you know what I'm saying? These people aren't Jewish. These Sanders, give me a freaking break.
Pelosi's married to you.
Oh, really? Oh, well, dumb fuck, wasn't he? Sorry. I wouldn't touch that
James. All right.
I wouldn't touch that with a 10-meter cattle prod.
Yeah. That's what he said.
That woman makes me shrivel up like a stack of dimes. Anyway, Pelosi, yeah. Nothing's worse than an atheistic Jew, because when they go hard, and they like being big and popular, and they like having power. Why do you think Jews are lawyers? The scum of the earth of my country. And they all go to be a lawyer. You know, these aren't, you know, come on, go home or shut up. Stop trying to be Jewish and go WASP like you really want to be. Bernie Sanders is a WASP. Chuck Schumer is a WASP. Feinstein is a WASP. They're not Jews. They wouldn't know what Jew was if they crawled up their ass. Excuse my pardon, but there, I think that's, you know, we always want to blame, you know, well, I'm not going to blame Torah. I'm not going to blame Israel. I'm not going to blame the Jews going home. I'm not going to blame the banking institution. I'm not going to blame Hollywood. I'm going to blame the atheist Jew who
the blame rests solely on their shoulders.
It's disgusting. And
what
do we tell people, the average American, the average worldly citizen who's aware of things? You know, people believe it. Europe, I mean, I was all for the revolution over there in France. Hell yeah, you brought you dumped manure on the parliament's front door and you brought them a guillotine. That's good thinking. That's good stuff. And then I see another video same week where they're harassing Jewish business owners for their problems, blaming Jews. And then I got a meme which said, you know, which was like, you know, it had three different clauses or whatever. It says, blaming Israel for claiming Israel was financial domination, hypnotizing the world. They're sorcerers. And what was the third? What was the third one? That this is Omar. This is just Ilya. Oh, this is Omar. But you know good and damn well that Rashid Tlaib, that whatever. I'm sure she's with it too. They've pretty much embraced Nazi ideology.
No Sharia law.
I'll take Sharia law over this.
No,
I don't know Sharia law, but you know, it's like, okay, do Muslims want to screw cows or whatever they do, or 8-year-olds? I don't know. I don't know about that Sharia law. I don't know enough about it. They don't need to be pushing Sharia law. That Ilya Omar, that she don't push that Rashida. She don't push. They're not pushing Sharia law.
Not yet. Give it a while.
And of course, all the white fuckers. I'll tell you what the Democrat Party did. They're too open. This is what happened to libertarians. You want one of America's greatest political jokes? It's called the Libertarian Party. Greatest political punchline, the greatest laughing stock of human swill. You're going to find out that. And a lot of them are good-meaning folks, but they're all about free speech. And everybody can speak freely. And you're free to have your beliefs in libertarianism because everyone's just all, you know, everyone can live well and it's utopian and we're stupid. Well, the Democrats are the same way. The Democrat Party wanted to be so inclusive, they'll go ahead and have a platter of human feces right there, along with a smorgasbord of other foods from all over the country. They'll even have smorgasbords of that country's feces, and they'll eat it up. And they want it because everyone's inclusive and diversity. Like nature wouldn't diverse a freaking enough. We got to enforce diversity on nature. Well, these arrogant sons of. So they want to include everybody. Now they included people who hate Jews, and they've embedded themselves deeply. They've suckered a lot of people, especially women. I pity the women who took part in the Women's March. The fact that you were a sucker to that Sour Zor, she ain't Muslim. You know what that hijab is? It's a freaking clown costume. That woman could give two shits about Allah. She could give two shits about Quran. She could give two shits about Hashem. She doesn't. She wears that as a clown costume, as something to sucker you white fuckers with your, I believe in everyone, diversity, and nobody's all that bad. Muslims are like every other bunch in this country. Let me tell you something. They're just like Christians. They're just like Mormons. They're just like Protestants. I say a few winners and a whole lot of losers. They're losers. These aren't good people. They're like you. They're schmucks. They're scum. They're nothing. They're nobodies. They're not here to get you. But this illusion of inclusiveness. Yeah, you're suckers. And Democrats did exactly what the Libertarian Party has, and now they've got a bunch of libertarians are worse than the Democratic Party. Everyone said Democrats are libertarians, as far as parties go, have the most Jew hate flowing through them, like it's blood. They thrive on blaming Jews. They thrive on blaming Israel, and all about AIPAC owns us. Are you freaking kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me? They own you. They control you. They make Jews out to be these puppet masters, like they're Lex Luthor, superhero, super evil, comic book villain level fucking controlling you, and they made the black man stab the other black man. They made the white man take methamphetamine and live in a junk hole. Yeah, because the Jews, that's what they do. The Jooz, the Jews. Oh, so there's my freaking rant. And this is what we've created. This is what my generation and it has. This is what my generation, the baby boomers, have produced. This is the best we can do, and that's going to be the curse of the United States of America. At this point, it's a salvage mission, in my opinion. I would like for hey, Donald, welcome. I'd like to get some folks in here who have a differing opinion, just so I can take your ideas and grind them into powder and blow it back in your face. I'd love to hear it. I just want to go out and kick some anti-Semitic ass. And the first people I'm starting with are atheists. Okay, I'm done. I'm done. Somebody talk and take over this thing before I want to have a beer.
That was awesome.
Don, what's going on, man? How you
doing? I'm doing well. How are you, John?
I thank glory to Hashem. I'm doing well.
There you go.
So
well as well.
I talked to you a few days ago. How's I guess we sort of I guess I brought up the topic that I had on the hangout with James, and you sort of got his 2 cents on the matter. Donald, you want to share your thoughts and opinion on the Democratic issue of
like this Omar chick and everything like that,
Omar,
and her anti-Semitism. I mean, look, these people have always been a party in search of a victim to take care of, and this is funny to me is that once upon a time, they were sitting there saying Donald Trump is an anti-Semite, and then the guy goes and moves the U.S. The U.S. ambassador. The U.S. embassy to Jerusalem, just like he said he would, in front of every American and Jew. He said that he was.
Everybody else said they would too, and he's the only one.
Yeah, and then he actually did it. That's right. And this is the guy that they were accusing of anti-Semitism during the 2016 election campaign, because he posted up some it looked like a 6-point star, something to do with Hillary Clinton and all the money that she makes, and he pointed up a 6-point star and he says, "Oh, that's a Jewish Star of David," and he's trying to say that Jews, are all about money and gold and Jewish gold and everything like that. I don't know if you remember that, but yeah.
Oh yeah.
This is that party. There's a book called. Yeah, there's a book called Rules for Radicals. And one of the number one rules in this book that it describes as a strategy is always accuse your opponent of what you are guilty of. All right? Because if you accuse your opponent what you are guilty of, then it just muddies the water enough.
Mm-hmm.
It just muddies the water enough. And this is what this Democratic Party just has a huge history of doing. You can go back to the, they were the party of slavery. They were the party of oppression. And they always just, they just point a finger at the other guy, say you're guilty of this. Okay. That's all you have to do to muddy the water enough, and that's just what they do. It's
and there's
sickening.
a campaign.
Yeah,
it's an ongoing campaign, isn't it? Not just. I mean, there are people on the street who will work this into conversations anywhere they can get it.
That's correct. That is correct. And that's just what they do now. Accuse your opponent of what you are guilty of, and you will muddy the water. You will muddy the water enough to just, get away with it, I guess. I mean, that's rules for radicals. It's a basic tactic.
I want to say that Goebbels was good at that.
Yeah, he was.
Goebbels, as we say in Brooklyn. Goebbels.
He was good at it.
It's a real honest. I think it's a conscious effort, and I think that's what suckers people. I'm not into the suckers at the moment. I want to get to the people who push it. I don't remember this much actual anti-Semitism. I get the Democrats and the whole collectivism, and what I don't get is nobody's coming out and saying you're nuts from the Democratic Party.
Yeah. To
Rashid or to, Rashid and Omar are the ones. Cortez, I think, is honestly a distraction. She's either a total idiot and worthy of every meme that can possibly be made on her, or she's an absolute, just a paid actor to keep you distracted. Oh, Democrats are so stupid, they'll let this idiot, they'll put her up and let her be the new American little darling. I think it's what's getting worse. Are other people. I mean, when you got Pelosi, well, I don't think she knew the weight of her words. Oh, it was about talking about Israel. She was, that's the new thing. Here's the new thing. And I wish Gav was here. Gav, if you're watching, get your rabbi butt in here. I wish he what was I saying? It was the
she doesn't know how to use words.
No, it was
that was her excuse, is that she doesn't know how to she doesn't know the words that she uses correctly or something.
Yeah, she doesn't. She never dictates between Israel and Israel state, or the Israel. Nobody know if you could say, I think you could have a point if you were to say the Israeli government has pulled the wool over the world's eyes and they're horrible. I could accept that and not accept that as anti-Semitism, just ignorance and I can't. Animosity personally toward her wouldn't have gone that way. She didn't. She said Israel, plain and simple. And then she uses words like Benjamins. No. When you're calling them Benjamins, that has absolutely nothing to do with the state of Israel. It has absolutely nothing to do with the Israeli government, or for that matter, people who live there. It has everything to do with calling the Jews and their money. And I've been to a few Jewish houses here in the States, and trust me, they aren't that freaking wealthy, unless they're atheists. The only wealthy Jews I meet are usually atheist, secular, humanist Jews. They're the ones who got that third and fourth house. You go to a rabbi, or you go, even in America, even when they're lawyers, you meet an Orthodox Jew, they're not going to live that way. They don't think like that. That's not how it's done. I'm sorry that you don't like the fact that Jews are good at banks, but that's the only thing your white European dukes and duchesses and lords and ladies and kings and emperors wanted out of them. They wanted nothing else out of them. They weren't allowed to do anything else people were doing, but they sure loved that Jew money, didn't they? So they started taking loans, didn't they? Well, if you don't like the Jews being, you can blame the Rothschilds. That family's done some good stuff, and they've done some absolutely horrific stuff. But come on, that's one family. They're not, the Chases aren't Jews. The Rockefellers weren't Jews. These weren't wasn't all Jews. It ain't about that, man. Nobody, they control you. They control the money. They start all the wars. Are you freaking kidding me? They couldn't buy their own people out of extermination in Europe if they're so freaking rich and they have so much freaking power. I'm just waiting for some liberal left Democrat to say that Hitler was a Zionist. And you think I'm laughing. You think I'm laughing about that. Some schmuck's going to come out and say it. And there's going to be a whole bunch of all American sheeple, humanist, secularist sheeple who are going to mentally masturbate themselves to that idea and run with it. You watch. It's coming. It's coming. Hitler is a Zionist. It's going to be, that's next.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Hitler wanted Israel. Hitler was a supporter of creating the state of Israel. And, if it was, he wouldn't let anybody leave. Yeah.
So we had a question out on the outside board. Someone asked, has any of us ever experienced anti-Semitism personally?
It's a room full of non-Jews. And yes, I have.
I've experienced anti-Semitism. Yeah.
Well, you're more Jewish than any of us.
You wouldn't like my answer to that question.
What do you mean? Go ahead. Well, share it. What's your answer?
Well, I'm a Christian, so I believe that Jesus was a Jew, and so Judaism is. So, anyways, you wouldn't like my answer.
That's all right.
Jesus, have you ever experienced anti-Semitism, and then you're saying that I wouldn't like the answer because you're a Christian
because I see myself as grafted into the tree, right? And so I consider myself a true Jew, even though I wasn't born Jewish, and that's a theology that we would butt heads on. But I think that the hatred for the Jews extends to the Christians because we see ourselves as grafted into the tree, and I see it as a hatred towards Christians as well. I see it I see it as just as anti-Semitic as maybe you would as an ethnic Jew.
Have you ever gotten smack? Have you ever experienced? Have you ever had to take up for the Jews before? Or have you ever been in a position where a line was drawn in the sand and you chose Israel? Like in a conversation or in a debate or school of thought? Go ahead.
No, I always support Israel. Always have, always will. And I don't know, does that answer the question?
Sure.
Yeah. I have always been a supporter of Israel. Because again, I do see myself as grafted in, and so therefore I'm always going to be a supporter of the tree that I'm grafted into. I'm always going to be a supporter of Israel.
I guess Ben Shapiro was right. American Christians can be Jews' best friends.
Yes, they can, and they are.
I've been fired from a job because I kept talking to the Jew of the crew, and my boss didn't like it and fired me.
For talking to a Jew?
For excessively talking to him, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and if you have a really biblical question, you ask him. Oh. Ask another guy, one of my bosses, and I told him to eat it, and he fired me. I've been like lobbied by bosses before when I find out that I attend a class at the virtual yeshiva, or I read Torah, whatever, and I've been lobbied by bosses before, and another job who were basically hell bent to get me to come to their church. And kept emailing me stuff, and it really caused quite a rift. To where, I called a guy an idiot, which wound up being the preacher's pastor, but he came on and said something about the Jews that some of these crazies can say. They're under the influence of Satan who rules this world. Don't you understand? And I called him an idiot. After his bit was done, because people kept calling in and complaining. I said, I understand. I think the guy's an idiot myself. However, I got something that's going to cheer you up. It's Blake Shelton, yada, yada, yada. I moved on to my next song. And next thing you know, the church is calling and they fired me. So,
wow.
That hurt. I haven't experienced any, except for what I get online. When, people have internet brass balls and they want to talk a big smack, and there was a fella in the group on Facebook, Tikkun Olam. He said, what do you do to people who are anti-Semitic, who are who make anti-Semitic claims, or anti-Israel, anti-Zionist, I think was the word he used, claims? And I was like, well, usually I can just let them talk, and all I have to do is just take what they say apart. let me say this to any American out there, and I think anybody who's a freedom lover, particularly Americans, because we're supposed to be under liberty here. There's no other place in the Middle East where Muslims, Jews, and Christians all have the same rights.
Correct.
There's no other place in the Middle East that doesn't execute gays.
Correct.
Publicly, not just beating them up like we do in the States. I mean, actually executing them in public. There's no other place where Christians or where different races, Arabics, Jews, have equal rights along with their religion. No place like that anywhere. For anybody, especially these freaking libertarians who are an embarrassment. You're a friggin' embarrassment to what liberty is. These libertarians, their anti-Zionist bit, for anybody who loves freedom, to scorn Israel. No, it's not perfect. The state of Israel's government is a shithole, like my own government's shithole, but I can't fault them. It's government. It's secular. What are you going to do? That's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to screw the world up. But the state's existence, its function, no, there's no good reason why any freedom-loving person would scorn that for any reason, or should ever support, unless you get the rare few, like the ones who speak at the Euro conference, whatever it is, the European Union thing. You get once in a while you get an intelligent man who might speak there, but for the most part, why would you choose Palestine over Israel? Right. Why would you choose Gaza when they have a chart in their charter is to destroy the Jewish people, let alone the state? Oh, well, they deserve to have their no. Right. Why would you give credence to freaking Nazis?
I always like to put it like this: if Palestine were to put down all of their weapons today, there would be peace. But if Israel was to put down all of their weapons today, it would be a total bloodbath. So, which one do you want? Which one do you want to side with? Do you want to side with peace, or do you want to side with a bloodbath? So, you don't got to be a Jew or a Christian to pick. You just got to be a human being.
It's tantamount to the Indians getting their land back in America. It's tantamount for the Supreme Court saying, you know what, the Indian Removal Act was illegal. This is your land again. That's what it's tantamount to what's happening over there. How can an American stand against that? How can anybody who claims to love freedom or liberty be against that? I don't see how you could be. But libertarians and Democrats and I have my own problem with Republicans. I really have a problem with Republicans. I can't stand them any more than anybody else. But Republicans aren't threatening my life. Republicans aren't out there calling for people to harass or assault people on the street who might be different than you. They're not out there advocating the end to the Constitution. And they're certainly not out there, pushing socialism in my face. At least capitalism pretends to believe in free trade. At least capitalists believe, at least Republicans believe, or at least in the message of individual liberty and freedom to some extent. None of them out there are threatening me in any way whatsoever. But the Democrats are doing it, and nobody says a thing. Libertarians want freedom, but they think the Jews, eliminating, I'd say about 43% of them really honestly believe that if we can just get rid of the Jews in Israel, we would have a libertarian circle jerk worldwide. Everybody'd love each other, and it'd just be everybody be dancing around and flowers and unicorns and midgets on little ponies and rainbows and lollipops growing out of the ground. And they really believe it. They seriously have it in their head. This is dangerous.
I've actually heard a saying. I do tend to lean libertarian, but I've heard a saying that one of the problems with going just full blown libertarian is that at the end of the day, it just means I don't really give a shit what happens to you. Right? That's like a full blown libertarian. And so I do lean towards libertarian because I do want the government to be small. I think that the bigger government becomes, the more meddlesome it can tend to become. But at the same time, I don't go full blown because at the end of the day, full blown libertarianism is like, I don't really give a shit what happens to you. You know, and I think that you know, go off.
I'm not
and fend,
required to
go
care.
off and go off and fend for yourself. You know, that sort of thing. But
yeah,
so
I'm not required to care. Well, then I don't have to.
Right. Right.
Well,
yeah,
that's
and
good.
in an ideal world, in a truly ideal world, government would not even be necessary. But it is necessary because we don't live in an ideal world, right? People are not always capable of governing themselves. People do cheat, people do steal, people do rip you off. People are not always honest in their dealings. So you do need some form of government, you know, you need prisons, you need police, you need courts. You need these things, unfortunately. Unfortunately, you need these things. Yeah. But this is only a necessary evil, right? It's not something that you want, it's just necessary. And so because government is necessary, you want the government to be there, but you want it to be as small as possible. The bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger it becomes, the more and more it becomes the actual perpetrators of the thing that it was created for in the first place. The injustice that you want it to protect you from, it becomes the perpetrators of the injustice itself. Mm-hmm. So this is why government is necessary, but it should always remain as small as possible, out of your life as much as possible.
I take the Noahide approach. It's the Jewish approach. When it comes to the state in Torah, you've got the priesthood and you've got the Sanhedrin courts, and that's it. The priesthood's for something the courts can't settle. Very benevolent. And then you have a court system, and that's it. A set of rules and a court to govern them by, and that's it. There's nothing else. You don't hear Moses setting up a council on children's affairs. You don't have him setting up the council of, and then we need an oversight
board. The local community deals with that, right?
That's right. And that's my case, because there are stateless people out there. And I say, well, how are you going to handle a divorce? What if human nature actually pops out of one of your stateless citizens and steals? How are you going to adjudicate it? How are you going to settle this? What do you do? Lynch him? You need some sort of governing power. And Torah says, we get 7 laws, and then we have one that says set up courts and balance, fair and balanced courts of justice, which would include peacekeepers, which would include governors, and which would include judges, usually in groups of 3 or more. They have judge after judge after judge if they need to. My goodness, they're doing everything they can to make this guy innocent. Are you kidding? That's it. But they don't have all these, all these special interest groups and these bureaucracies and that clog up, that create the government which we know of today. You need law and you need a court, and that's it. You really don't need much else. The rest is, and that's where all these anti-Semitic folks can seep in over the past 20, 30 years. It's easy to get in there. And of course, I'm one of the bigger Noahide proponents of Muslims. I think there is a greater richness to be found and a greater wealth in Muslim people than maybe they realize, certainly more than people that have to deal with the ass end of Islam have to, might believe. But I don't. But that's just me, and I'm trying to be positive about the whole thing. But for the sake of diversity, for the sake of, we need to get, they go. You ever notice that anti-Semites always side with everything wrong with freedom? Always, 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 always. Or Cortez, and she's just going to stand by them. She's just going to stand by. She's not educated enough and doesn't know it. That Rashida Tlaib, she ain't no ignorant. The people like that are dangerous, y'all.
Right.
If you want to take down my government, fine, say it. You want to end the Constitution? You want to wipe my people out? Fine, say so. But don't hide behind this
They hide. They're not. They're very false. You know their agenda, but they just don't want to say it out loud. And every now and again, they reveal their true agenda. I've always noticed this.
I just want to say
That's what's
real
happening now,
quick
isn't it?
before the conversation gets kind of deep and heavy like it is. I want to say good night to everyone, and
Hey,
I
John.
do want to announce we do have an official Orphans of Abraham chat room here on Google on hangouts.google.com. It's actually named the official Orphans of Abraham chat room. Please join it and share that link and share your videos if it pertains to Judaism. I love to listen to some interesting stuff. John Gishla also. Thank you, James, for hosting. Thank you, Rosalie, for coming by. I have to get some sleep now, but
Thanks for being the whale.
me, I'm gishla@gmail.com. Go ahead, Jim. What happened?
I said, thanks for being the whale. Spit me back out in the orphans.
Oh yeah, Jonah the Whale. Yeah.
The Nineveh effect. That's Gishla 2019. I'm going to look at you as the whale.
Just when you thought you were out, they pull you back in, right?
Shabbat Shalom, Yochanan.
Yeah.
And to wifey.
I don't want to know you or what you do. You're not a friend. You're not a brother. You call an hour before when you see our mother. I don't want to be here when you're here. I kind of butchered The Godfather too, but all right, take care.
I was wondering
Good
what was going on there.
Good Shabbos.
Hey, God bless, John.
So yeah, we've got. I don't know any other vessel other than social media where the average American can do anything about the horse shit that's being pumped into America's heads. I mean, we want to be pragmatic people. We want to say, well, there's two sides to every story. But there's a lot of misinformation. My cousin actually hooked me up with a Muslim who's Palestinian. Got us into arguing. And I creamed the mother. He really is expecting. I mean, I think people are expecting Americans to just eat up a bunch of bullshit. Fake history from Palestine. There's no such thing as Palestinian history.
Well, part of it is everybody wants people who are open-minded, but there does come a point where you're so open-minded that your brain just falls out. So that's how I
don't find very many people open-minded. Most people are open-minded with things that they agree with, and only that stuff. Right. Like maybe a little bit more extreme than what they believe. But beyond that, people are not open-minded. Especially liberals.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I always use the phrase open-minded, but not so open-minded that your brain just falls out.
Good grief.
I mean, it's good to be open to new ideas, but that's why I really love that phrase, open-minded, but not so open-minded that your brain just falls out. You don't want to be that open-minded. I mean, shit. So you got to be grounded in something at least. There's another saying, it takes a great mind to be able to try an idea on without actually agreeing with it. So take the idea and pretend like you agree with it, but not actually agree with it. Like, I can't remember the exact phrase, but it's something about takes a great mind to try an idea without actually agreeing with it. I can't remember how the saying goes. Kind of like the saying, be open-minded, but not so open-minded that your brain just falls out.
Yeah. Well, now the Democrats are stuck. Libertarians don't care. They're not going to win anything anyway. Right. But the Democrats, I mean, when the Republican happens, they get him out as quickly as possible. And I think we go overboard when we get on that. Everyone, when the Virginia governor came out or when they found a picture of him as a black man, or he was a Klansman and his wife was a black lady, and they came as a couple. That's funny, but everyone wanted to focus on the racism of that and the KKK-ness of that, and not the fact the man was talking about getting rid of babies after they're born.
Correct.
The whole women's movement is another. It was fueled by, and the women's movement came out and said we were a little leery when in the early stages whether we were going to have a policy where we blame Israel for all the mistreatment of women. I mean, of all people, you're going to say Jewish women are mistreated. If we could just unleash Jewish women on the world, you know, just give them some whiskey and say, go. You'd see a real woman's lib right then and there. It just happened. When Israel state, the Israeli government, and the Jewish women in general are the reason why we have so many female problems in the world. They fed it, and these radical losers, lost folks, dying to grab a hold of something, grabbed a hold of this and ate it. And look what they did in public. I was embarrassed as an American. You simulate abortion, you simulate birth, you simulate periods. You're doing protests where you rub your own blood on yourself and take pictures and put on Facebook. You wear pussy hats. They had you suckered. That's how deep it is. That's how deep this is in your society, America. They got you bullshitted, man. Bullshitted. That was, I mean, there's a thing I've heard that when it comes to infidels, Islam doesn't have to be honest with them and treat them well at all.
Correct.
You can lie to them. You can fuck with them.
Yeah,
well, they've done it.
Yeah,
they did it. That's what that Rashid and that Salzor did. They're already there.
Right.
They won. They won your heads. They might not have legislative power in the numbers, but they won your head. And they hate Jews. Think about that. The same people that talk women into wearing pussy hats and mimicking their period in public is a big display for the media to smear all over the landscape. They hate Jews. Think about that for a second. They hate them. Hate.
Mm-hmm.
The same people that want an open border, who want to who stand by Louis fucking Farrakhan, who still has a goddamn Twitter account. Stand by Louis Farrakhan. Stand by all these people. They hate Jews. All that socialism shit, that raise the minimum wage shit, and this anti-bourgeoisie bullshit. They hate Jews. They always, every time it comes back to hating Jews. And it's always there. It's always there. Anybody you can have, some people don't like Jewish people, okay? They don't like the way they talk. They don't like the way they dress. I know Asians who would never want to spend an evening at the dinner table with a white people or any Kwailo. I know, or China, when it comes to Chinese, I know black folks who just really aren't interested in bringing white folks over to have supper with them. You know, I get a natural, healthy form of racism. It's natural, and I still think we can live well together, and I think we do for the most part. But this is out. This is beyond that. And just do a little research. And every time you get one of these left-wing extremist ideas, it's always going to come back to people who hate Jews. It's weird, but it's real. I don't know what else to say. Same people, same motives. The idea of individual liberty and freedom. That's Torah. Torah is not socialist in any way, shape, or form. The prohibition of the commandment to prohibit kidnapping, prohibit theft, as we know it in the Christian world, is the bear proof right then and there against all forms of socialism ever. You can't have private property in socialism or communism. Torah distinctly says you have private property, and it's forbidden for you to take someone else's private property. That ends the whole Lenin. That ends Marx. Yeah, I know Marx was a Jew, another atheist Jew who didn't give a shit about Torah or the Jewish people. Another fucking atheist fuck-up Jew. Excuse my French. And Jews out there, I know Jews in black hats and payas and beards are like, you know, yeah, exactly. We know what you're saying. It always comes down to hating Jews and getting rid of them, blaming them for everything. One of the smallest nations, one of the smallest bunches of people on the planet, let alone, and you take that and cut that in half, and then you've got God-fearing Jews, which is the whole reason why they were Jews in the first place. Okay.
Correct.
I'm talking a lot. I'm fueled. I'm angry.
You're preaching.
I don't give a shit.
Choir.
Let it all out. Let it all out.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir, brother. Preaching to the choir, which is good to do sometimes, I suppose.
I'm going to check the outside chat and see if we can see if anybody's talking out there and asking questions. You're watching this on the Idol Smasher YouTube channel, mine. And I guess I'm going to be hosting these from now on. So join the conversation. I'll put a link out here in the outside chat. We won't be live for too much longer, but if you're watching, we've got a few listeners. Come on in and ask a question if something's on your mind. You know, I don't want to be. I'm not saying we're gonna love everything you say, but you know. Zechariah asked, "Are most of you converts?" One way or another. Maybe convert in the ger sense, not convert in the going Jew sense. Definitely. You know, George here, or George, Donald, you know, considers Israel his people. I'm what you might call a Gerish ben Noach, I guess.
I'm Ger.
But he was asking, you know, are most of you converts? So Zechariah Lauer, yes and no. We're not Jewish, but we did convert from various non-idolatry.
Carla's converting.
Oh, that's true. Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, Carla's converting. John is converting. Is Jewish. I don't know. He's circumcised. He accepted the law, lives by the law. And yeah, Carla's on her way. So yeah, if you're watching, Zechariah, one, thank you. And there you have it. There you have it. All right. One more thing. I hate to say vote harder, but vote harder. I hate that. But I don't know any other way. I mean, they're making asses out of themselves at this point where I think what I like to call FDR Democrats, old school Democrats, the ones that my granddad could have as best friends and not have anything get in the way. Can't do that these days. But back in the old days, Democrats, Republicans, they could be friends. They would have families whose children played together. What a radical concept. What a radical concept. I want to read something if I can, just to close off the live link if we don't get anybody else in here. It's a forward from the Hertz edition Chumash. And it's really interesting. It breaks down fundamental concepts into sacrifice, holiness, influence, and divisions. It says the oldest name for the third book of Moses is the Law of the Priests, or the book which describes the functions of the priesthood and the duties of the priestly nation. So it's not just the duties of the Cohen and the Cohen Gadol and the Levies, but as Israel as a whole. That's why I like to call a Jewish priest a priest's priest. He's the one that the Buddhist priest, the Catholic priest, or the Hindu priest would go to and get the full story. That's the whole thing about one nation for one house for all nations. Fundamental concepts on half of the book deals with the sacrifice and the laws that safeguard the priestly character of Israel. The other half with holiness and the sanctification of human life. John was talking earlier, the book of Leviticus, and it's technical, but what you're learning is the rectification of the sin in Eden, in Gan Eden, in the Garden of Eden. 9 sins of men, these are rectified, and that's what the function of the priesthood is, be it the priest of Israel. Israel is a nation amongst other nations, and I'm going to go so far as to say within you. There is a priestly element within you, a function of your consciousness that connects the divine to the mundane. What we learn in Torah is how to be a good vessel to that, so that what we bring out into the world that is descended from heaven isn't polluted, distorted, perverted in a way that negatively affects the world around you. The first fundamental concept of the book, they say, is sacrifice. The study of the origins of human worship has shown that animal sacrifice is an immemorial institution among virtually all races of men. It is therefore essential to raise this universal method of worship to a purely spiritual plane. That's according to Maimonides. This is done in Leviticus. All magic and incantation. Now let me repeat that here, because I think incantation is a word. But all magic and incantation, biblically, magic is that which affects you on a psychological level, and not a spiritual or a miraculous level, if you will. All magic and incantations are banished from the sacrificial cult, and everything idolatrous or unholy is rigorously prescribed, with very few exemptions. For instance, Leviticus 1:20-26, we can read that later. Deliberate sins are excluded from the sphere of sacrifice, and in all cases, repentance and restitution of the wrong done must precede the sacrificial act. And thus, while these are resemblances between sacrifice in Israel and sacrifice among the peoples, there are also fundamental differences that transform sacrifice as ordained and the Torah, in the written Torah, into a vehicle of lofty religious communion and truth. The burnt offering expresses the individual's self-surrender to God. Another thing I want to repeat: the burnt offering expresses the individual's self-surrender to God and to God's will. The peace offering, gratitude for his bounties and mercies. The sin offering, sorrow for having erred from the way of God and the firm resolve to be reconciled with God. And the congregational sacrifices, furthermore, taught as a vital lesson for the interdependence of all members of the congregation as a sacred brotherhood, and kept alive within the nation the consciousness of his merits. This is on how sacrifice or offerings. I don't like sacrifice. It's an older text, but I think offerings is a better word. Number 2 is holiness. The other function brought in the book is holiness, i.e. purity of life, purity of action, purity of thought, befitting a priestly nation. All precepts in Leviticus are merely a translation into terms of daily life of the divine call. Ye shall be holy, for I, the Lord, your God, am holy. Holiness is an active principle, shaping and regulating every sphere of human life and activity. In chapter 19, the demand, ye shall be holy, is included in a series of sublime ethical doctrines. In chapter 11, it is embodied by the dietary laws. The rule of holiness governs the body as well as the soul, since the body is the instrument with which the soul acts. The holy principle of the holy God was to keep itself free, not from moral transgression, but from the ceremonial defilement, which would weaken the barriers against the forces of heathenism and animalism that all sides menaced Israel.
This is Maimonides who said this?
Well, that was that one particular section on sacrifice. That was from Maimonides. This is it's from the Hertz edition Chumash, the Sansino. Real quick here, 2 small paragraphs. We have influence. In ancient times, the Jewish child began the study of Scripture with Leviticus, because little children are pure and sacrifices are pure. Let those who are pure come and occupy themselves with pure things. That's part of the Midrash. And we say, and we may well judge the book by its by its influence of the education of Israel. As a result of its stern legislation, Israel's sons and daughters were freed from the ignoble and the vile, from all brutality and bestiality. As a result of its sanctifying guidance, no other excuse me, no people ever attain to a higher conception of God or a saner appreciation of the vital significance of health and holiness in the life of men and the nations. Finally, divisions. Chapters 1 through 7 define the laws of sacrifice for the individual, for the congregation, and for the priests. Let me mute you, Carly. I got some scratching going on there, so I'm going to mute you for a second. Okay. The inauguration of, okay. I want to start again. Divisions. Chapters 1 through 7 define the laws of sacrifice for the individual, for the congregation, and for the priests. Chapters 8 through 10 describe the inauguration of worship and the completed sanctuary, or the tabernacle. Then chapters 11 through 27 deal with the laws of clean and unclean, of purity and purification, marriage, personal and social ethics. Thou shalt not love thy neighbor. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. The sacred festivals, land tenure, and conclude with a solemn exhortation of the connection between religion and national welfare. Again, we go back to Denham. And finally, chapter 27 is the supplementary chapter on vows and tithes. So while it seems like a very dry book, I wanted to point out there's a lot more to what you're going to be reading or what we're going to be studying the coming week.
I didn't understand you.
It doesn't sound dry to me.
Oh, good. It doesn't. They say it doesn't sound dry to me.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, a little muffled. That's why I was making sure.
Oh, sorry. I said it doesn't sound dry to me.
There he is.
Yeah.
Anybody have anything they want to add to the evening's discussion before we close off the live portion and bring in the dancing girls? Anybody?
Bring in the dancing girls.
All right. My email is jamestheidolsmasher@gmail.com. This is the Idol Smasher YouTube page, YouTube channel. Check out, of course, John Gishla. He's really who kind of took over this thing, but him being about 8 hours across the ocean makes things a bit difficult. So I might be taking over for him. We'll keep this up every Thursday night. Questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, join the Orphans of Avraham on Facebook. It's the one working group. Of course, we've got an official Orphans of Avraham hangout open on Hangouts. We'll see how Google's going to work through that, but right now Hangouts are staying. So we're there. We're on Facebook. Join us. Join up. If you like what we're talking about, join the conversation next week. On behalf of Donald, Carla, Rosalie, Yohanan, everybody else in the Nexus and the Orphans of Avraham, I'm James, the Idol Smasher. Shabbat Shalom, y'all.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.